Hello, welcome to our class today. So for the next 15 minutes, we'll do the opening class on Power BI. We'll show you quite a few things, then we'll take a few live questions, then we'll come back and now do another time on this video. So just stick around and let's dive into the Power BI environment. So here is my Power BI environment. This is my icon on desktop. If you have watched the previous video, you would have seen we went over how to install Power BI in the previous video. So now we are just running Power BI and we'll start our visualization and data analysis from here. Now, in order to prevent this particular screen from popping up, you can just come and uncheck this box. Once you uncheck this box, you will not see this splash screen again. And for this video and this demonstration, I have had to register my version of Power BI so that I can take advantage of some online tools and also publish my work to a cloud storage. So you can see my name here. This shows that I have done a registration of this Power BI installation copy. So let's just close here and let's start our work. Now, one of the good things about Power BI is that you can pull data from so many sources, and we're going to do our best to demonstrate that today. I hope it works, but I'm sure it will. Now, the first thing we want to do is to pull our data, right? Then we would make some adjustments to our tables, right? Where necessary, because it's not all the time that it's necessary. And then after we are done with that adjustment, we would now construct the entire visualization, show the entire report on this canvas. This small white space here is called the canvas. And once we publish several canvases, we can now pin those canvases to a big dashboard in a dashboard, and then we can now share that dashboard with our friends, colleagues, and as many persons as we want. So now let's start from the beginning, which is pulling data from our external sources. Now, if I come here, you have the get data. If I click this small arrow, you have a whole lot of ways you can pull data. I want to click on more, and then so that you can have now appreciate appreciate the whole list. You have all kinds of lists from text, XML, JSON, folder, PDF. There's a whole long list. Now, if you are doing programming, you would probably be interested in these two options, this and this. These are the two ways that applications usually share data, especially if you are doing something like API. So you can see a whole long list, including things like Oracle database, PostgreSQL, SQL, MySQL database, and a whole lot of sources. But today, we are going to just focus on just only two sources, or maybe we'll make it three. We're not sure. But let's just see what happens after that. Okay, so let's just go to get data, and if you click more, we have all sorts of sources. It will show us all sorts of sources where we can gather data from. But what we are going to do, we'll just demonstrate getting data from an external source, and for that we are going to use Google Analytics. Now, Google Analytics is an interface, right, by Google. It's a portal by Google that tells us the statistics of visitors that come to different websites. Now, once you implement Google Analytics on your website, it can tell you things like the number of people who visited, the devices they used, the time they spent on the page, what pages they visited, and all that. So we're just going to demonstrate pulling data from an external source, which in this case will be Google Analytics, into our reports, and then we'll now use it to draw the rest of our conclusion. Now, I'm going to click connect, and I will connect to I'll connect to my company's database or my company's access of Google Analytics. This may not be available to you, but I will just connect to my company's access of Google Analytics and pull some data from this portal where you have this registration, right? So I would open Prime Royal here, open all web data, and I will go and look for page tracking. Okay, here's page tracking. Now, the first thing I want to do is that I want to get average time on page. Now, notice as I click it, it shows me a preview of the data here. The average time spent on the page in the entire site, in the entire Prime Royal site, is 1 minute 30 and 37.631 blah 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 seconds, right? Now, I also want to get something like, say, number of pages per session. Number of pages per session is the average page that a visitor will spend each time he visits the site. I also want to get unique page views. Unique page views is the number of, well, of course, you can see a tooltip here. Unique page views is the number of sessions during which the specific page was viewed at least once, right? Now, I want to compare this with a couple of other metrics. I want to go to session and compare it with, let's say I want to do something like hits, number of hits. Now, number of hits is actually total number of visits of a page, right? So you visit a page once, you refresh it, that's a second hit, refresh it, that's a third hit, and all that. I also want to come to platform or devices, and I want to scroll down to operating system. Now, you can see when I select operating system, I've now been able to build a table. Now, in this table, you have Android. These are all the statistics for Android devices. These are all the statistics for BlackBerry devices, for Chrome OS, Linux, Macintosh, Nokia, Windows, and all that. Now, all of these data helps you make intelligent decisions as to what devices your users are having more. Now, you can see even from the number of hits, you can see that there is a very high number in this second row, and that second row is Android. So which means from this data, we can see that Android users are visiting this site much more, right? There's been so much hits. There's been, a very large visit of hits, and you can see this value is more or less the smallest, which is 10, followed by this. So unique page views is 10 here, and the number of hits is 10 here. And this is, if you can check this data, you'll see this is Nokia. So people who use Nokia are no longer visiting the page like that, because the number of hits is gradually reducing. In fact, it's just 10 and just stopped there at 10, right? So this data is going to help us, especially if we are running an e-commerce store. Now, we click on load. Now, normally we could have clicked on transform if we needed to make some changes to the data, like the headings or whatever, but we don't need any changes. So let's just click on load at once. Now, what is happening now is that all those figures from that Google Analytics, Power BI is pulling all of them into itself, right? Now, the good thing about Power BI is once you establish a connection and use the data for your own analysis, you would always have, what's it called? You would always have, once you refresh the connection, it will just go back to those external sources and pull those data. Now, my data has successfully pulled, and how do I know? If you come here, you will see a table. Now, this is a preview of a table that has all of my figures, right? Now, what do we want from this? We want things like unique. Oh, by the way, before I go forward, let me just introduce you to two things. Now, on this left-hand side, we have reports, we have data, and then we have model. Now, this report is opens up this canvas where we can set up our visualization. This second tab opens up the databases, so you can select the databases and see a preview of what is going on. And this third model actually shows you all the tables you've imported, and it's supposed to show you the relationship between the two tables or the multiple tables you have, but we'll get there very soon when we import a second data or a second set of data and try to now form a correlation between multiple tables. So now, what I want to do is I want to come back to data and just make sure that everything here is okay. Now, all of my tables seem to be fine. Let me see if I can make some changes. Okay, all of my tables are fine. All of my tables are fine. Average time on the page. Okay, and all of my devices are fine. So Now, what I want to plot is, let us go and plot. First of all, we're going to take off this not set. Oh no, not set is important. Now, not set is every other thing else that cannot be classified into all of this class. So let's just leave it as not set, or maybe we can even change it to others, but let's just leave it at not set yet. Or we can take it off. Let's take it off. So to take it off, I'll just come here and just uncheck this, and everything is fine. Now, one more thing. This is supposed to be a time. The format of this row is supposed to be time. So let's just change this from, let's change data type first to date and to time. Okay, no, that doesn't give us what we want. Let's just change this to decimal numbers. Okay. Average time on page. Okay, so these are really small numbers. We cannot, there's a limit to how much we can work with this, unless we are going to either have convert it to percentage or multiply it by a couple of thousands. Now, this is average time on page, which means it includes people who spent an hour on the page, 30 minutes on the page, 2 minutes on the page, 1 second on the page, and even 0 seconds on the page, right? Some people just open the page, and as the page is loading, they just close it. So all of those averages put together is what we have here, right? Now, let's see. I think we can plot this with pages per session and unique page views, right? We can plot these figures with pages per second and unique page views. Okay, even though hits are important, but let's just go and do that. All right, so let's choose a small chart, right, where we plot. Remember, I said we plot pages per second and unique page views. So let's go and take device name, operating system. We'll click on operating system, and Power BI will just, as you are selecting each value, Power BI will just automatically place it where it feels it should be. Then if you look at the data and you find that doesn't work for you, you can now rearrange it to what you want. And by the way, we're going to plot unique page views and pages per session. So first of all, we'll plot operating system versus, let's plot unique page views first. So we have operating system, and then we'll now have unique page views. Okay, now here's the map. Now you can see obviously already Android, Windows, and iOS seem to be leading. Then the rest are coming behind. This not set is still here. Let's go and get rid of it. Oh, we can actually just refresh this. Okay, all right. Let's see, just 1 second. All right, so that's the first report that we want to consider. Let's put that report here. Now, the second thing we want to consider is, let's say, operating system and hits. What do we plot? Unique page views and then pages per session. Maybe we can even plot it on the same graph. Yes, but it's not too visible. You can see the pages per session is very, very tiny. So let's not do that. Instead, let us go and use another chart to plot that. Right, let's take another chart. Let's take another chart and plot operating system versus pages per session. Okay, now what we are doing here is that we want to show which devices is getting what's it called, is getting sessions per system. Well, let's see if we can change that. Okay, no. So this is pages per session, right? These are the devices that I have, that on the average, what this chart means is that on the average Windows user, right? The average Windows user spends about 3.79 pages every time he comes to our site, right? The average Linux user goes through about 2.74 pages every time he arrives on our site, right? Now, these metrics are very good or very useful when you are doing something like an e-commerce website, because it will tell you, by looking at these two reports, it will tell you where your customers are coming from. Now, this first report, obviously you have more of Android and Windows users, right? The Android user is about 4,830 and Windows users about 2,863. Those are by far the highest, right? Now, remember Pareto's principle that says something like, I think 80% of your customer comes from 80% of your volume comes from 20% of your customers. So these two alone represents much more than 80% of your revenue. Revenue in this case means people who visit your site. Now, for somebody who is running an e-commerce website, when you see this, what you need to do is that all of your design or all your new website pages or anything, you need to know that you would have to focus on Android users and Windows users. In fact, iOS users is even small, but Android users and Windows users are key, right? Now, you can afford to ignore people like Nokia users, Windows Phone users, BlackBerry users, Chrome OS users. You can ignore all those guys, but these two guys, Android users and Windows users, and Windows in this case is Windows smartphones. So these two guys, you cannot ignore them no matter what happens, right? Now, so we've successfully plotted the graph for, okay, let me just see if we can we add one more report? Can we add one more report? Let's see if we can add average time on the page. Average time on a page, let's see if we can make it as a percentage. This time around, I want to use a pie chart, and I want my operating system, and I want the average time spent on the page. Well, that looks a little bulky. Okay, so do we really need this here? That's going to take quite a whole lot of space. So let's look for another chart that may work better for this. Let's try this chart. Okay. Then we can put it here. Okay. So this is the average time that. Okay. So this is the average time a user spends on the page, right? So now we have three reports. First report is the average time a user spends on the page. We have more people using Mac. Okay, let's try and do this by percentages. That's why a chart would have been better. A pie chart would probably have been better. Or let's try this. Okay, good. Now this chart is fine. This tree map seems fine, right? So obviously the bigger the area, the larger the average time spent on the page. So the average time spent, for example, for a Mac is much higher, right? Compared to a Windows device, a BlackBerry device, and all that. Now, note that the reason why you are seeing 000 here is that these figures we have are quite small, right? They are quite small, and it's best to just express them by way of percentage, unless you want to start doing a multiplier, multiplied by something, right? Now, the next, we are going to take a pause for now to take your questions. When we come back, we are going to now import data from an Excel sheet, and then we're now going to add to our reports and continue to expand it.